another exciting interview on the Scouser and the Scot.
Today we've got a man of many talents. He's helped out in a number of different areas. Danny Harvey, how the hell are you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Keeping well, mate. Yeah, how's lockdown treating you?
Just trying to keep busy, trying to keep productive, kind of keep a focus on things, otherwise I'll just get lost.
It's easy done at the moment,
Oh,
unfortunately.
absolutely, yeah.
So to keep you busy, we've got 10 questions to throw at you. Hope you don't mind. It's just music related, obviously, but we might throw a few other curveballs in at you. So let's start off. Can you give us a bit of history, background? What was your first introduction to music, and what kind of music did you listen to?
So the first kind of music I listened to, I guess, was kind of like the pop punk side of things, was I guess a lot of people did like Blink, Green Day, New Found Glory, all that was kind of my introduction to it. And I try to think of where I even heard them for the first time, and I want to throw it back to like Kerrang on Sky and Scuzz and MTV2. Do you remember all them?
Oh yeah.
I think
Um,
quality.
just flicking through, I remember going and says, "Oh, I like this." And I remember showing some people at school, and they'd be like, "What? Who's it? What's this?" And I was like, "I don't care. I'm going to listen to it." And then obviously that led me to picking up a guitar, and I guess my first introduction to music was like playing guitar, and then that kind of all escalated from there.
So who in particular inspired you, as a musician and made you want to get involved in being a musician or guitarist?
Yeah, I guess mainly my dad, to be honest. Like he was always like music was always played around our house, like constantly. He just loved different stuff from like Bruce Springsteen, which still listen to now, obviously, in the Stones. He was always like all about that, playing it. And obviously then my interest came from watching this and then getting a guitar, and he just pushed me. And then he had some interest about recording, so he wanted to record me playing guitar, and then that grew my interest in that side of like recording, and we built a studio together. So like I was maybe like 16 now, just about to go into college, and we kind of started building a studio in our garden. So basically, I grew up on a farm in Cornwall, so sound and noise wasn't really a problem. So um,
Just
and then
as
I
well.
started learning drums, and then obviously I got to college and I met some like-minded people, and we started a band, and I started recording our own band, and then obviously other bands came along, and I learned as I went, I guess.
Yeah,
So, so can you give us a bit more of like your musical journey? So obviously you was talking about a band and stuff like that. So what actually happened? Like, right from the off, you played a few gigs and then
Yeah, I played a few little small shows around Cornwall, nothing really of any interest, but had a great time doing it. And obviously, at college, I studied what was it called then? Music technology, I guess. And then I guess that grew my interest in the recording side of things. So, and I went to university in Brighton, and I studied music production. So that again took that side of it further. And I guess when I went to uni, I stepped away from playing more. So that was when I not gave up the dream, if you were, because as a kid, that's all I wanted to do. Then I wanted to be in a punk band or a rock band or whatever playing, and then kind of lost my interest. Not lost my interest, lost my dream in it, and then went to go to like studio stuff. So my 3 years at uni, and then after uni, I obviously I needed a job, and I didn't want to just go and work in a 9 to 5 or anything. I really wanted to push doing like music stuff. So I had a friend who gave me a chance to shadow him in a venue. So live sound was my first kind of introduction to live sound. Shadowed him, and then ended up getting a job at that venue. And then I ended up doing like crew work, local crew work around Brighton and like the Brighton Centre and the Dome. And then a company that went to London, and then met bands, met people, chatted, networked myself, and then I was off on my first tour. And my first tour was with a band called Set Your Goals, and it was with Cancer Bats and
oh
Every
yeah.
Time I Die. So we were opening for them. And then I worked for those two bands, and then on tour with them, I met other bands, and then it all just kind of escalated of who I met. And then more recently, I went into band management because I ended up TMing as well as doing sound, in a way to kind of not stop touring, but obviously I don't want to tour forever. So that was kind of my thought of getting out. And then to round it all up to make a brief, he said, during lockdown, I started a Sonic Workshops, it's called.
Mm.
So kind of to help people learn about the music industry and different aspects of it. It's all online, like one-to-one mentoring and like teaching about. I obviously do tour management and live sound stuff. Then we have George, who you had, that does like studio stuff. Then we have other people that does PR, songwriting. We have guy from Silverstein doing like guitar lessons, and guy from Cancer Bats doing guitar lessons. A drummer from Frank Hart and the Rattlesnakes doing like drum lessons. So
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, one of the things that we're obviously going to go into talk a little bit more about Sonic Workshops, but the thing that's still in my mind, and it's because I used to be in a band back in the bands back right through the 80s. And then when I moved from Scotland to England, I just gave up on the music altogether. But I mean, what was it, do you think, that switched you from wanting to be on the stage to wanting to be behind the scenes? You know, can you talk through that process? Because there may be people watching this who think they want to be in a band, or they're struggling with it, or whatever, that might make that decision. Can you talk us through that?
yeah, I guess my it changed from playing guitar to get my interest in recording it. Mainly because when I was playing shows, I was always quite a shy kid, I guess, and I never really thrived on stage. I remember playing a show, and then my dad or friend or someone told me afterwards, "You faced the back the whole time," and I didn't face the crowd, and I was like, I don't know why, I just didn't want to be the center of the thing. So I guess that made me take a step back, and I still enjoyed the recording and producing side of stuff. So I kind of wanted to push myself that way. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I was the complete opposite. I always wanted to be a drummer when I was a young teenager. And then somebody pointed out to me one night, well, you know, the drummers are always at the back of the stage. And I thought, sack that, I'll be the singer then.
Yeah.
So I'm the complete opposite. I have no comprehension of what you're talking about, but as a valid point. So let's go back to Sonic Workshops. Can you talk us through what you believe what you think Sonic Workshops will bring to the table that's different, and what your specific role is in it, you know, the nuts and bolts of it?
Yeah. So me and George created it during lockdown. I guess it came from just me and him chatting about wanting to help some students at a college that he works at, and then I actually wrote a tour management course for, which is Water Bear. And we were like, we can help those students. And I was like, why don't we make this a bigger thing and we can open it up to the world? Because obviously everyone's kind of chilling at home right now. So it's one-to-one mentoring online for anyone that's interested in the music industry. So it kind of started off with just 6 mentors. So it was like someone doing social media, someone doing record label stuff, studio stuff, live sound, and then like within film and adverts and stuff, like writing music to that. And then it got interest of other people, and they messaged me and they wanted to join in, they wanted to become a mentor. I guess it came from, one, obviously wanting to help people, and two, a lot of people had a lot of time in their hands, like people that were touring, people that are normally used to being busy like that and just wanted something to keep busy. So I guess that came from it. So we've had so many different varied people in colleges in America, people in colleges in the UK and Europe learning tour management, live sound, how to promote their album. And to answer what I do with it specifically, I guess I'm more of the admin side of it. So I built the website, did all that kind of keeping track of everything when it comes in, like all the financial side of it, and also I'm a mentor on it as well.
It's quite interesting, like, because we've done like over 6 months of these. We started ourselves during lockdown, and we thought, you know, this would be a great idea. The more people we interview, and John, you can shoot me down if you want. The more people I actually I actually talk to on these shows, it just shows you what a great community we've got in the
Oh,
music scene.
absolutely.
And because everyone is willing to help and everyone's willing to push in the right direction. And it doesn't matter what level you are, it doesn't matter where you come from, what aspects or anything like that. Everyone, if you reach out, don't be afraid to reach out, because it's like, no, everyone will be offering to help you at some point. Like, so this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this, like, because it's great to actually speak to the likes of yourself, Danny, to hear stories like that, where, like you say, you've got people who are offering guitar lessons who are in established bands and stuff like that. Yourself, who've worked with experienced bands and traveled the world, like, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. So it's a great knowledge share from my perspective. So from your side of it, obviously you've been a tour manager. Can you talk us through that and what you think the key areas are of being a tour manager, and what's the main like drive behind it for yourself?
Yeah, so I guess the key areas would be like organization. So obviously you're planning everything from transportation to each show to like organization of the money, so the financial side of it and all, and then keeping the band and the crew happy is a very big part of it too. Happy band, happy crew, happy tour. Do you know what I mean? If you get someone with a kind of like in a down mood, it affects everyone. You're essentially living with these people, aren't you? I mean, my longest tour has been 2 months, like 12 of us on a bus. It can get quite, so keeping vibes high, keeping all that high is, I think, important. And then, yeah, go on, sorry.
Well, no, I was going to say, obviously, 2 months on a close confined area, it's a challenge. And I don't think
Absolutely.
people understand that when you say that we're going on tour, blah, blah, blah. It does have its ups and downs. How do you actually manage those ups and downs? What's the best way? What advice would you give to any band who's going on tour for the first time?
Take some time for yourself. Don't, yeah, go out for dinner on your own. Go out for a walk on your own. Just get away from it from a little bit. Like, obviously, being a TM is quite different. That I sometimes couldn't do that because I had to be there and be involved in everything. But also, keeping busy is a way to step away from it, if that makes sense. If I just go and sit on the bus, I'm like, oh, or sit in a van. Like a van tour, I've done van tour tours. They're even harder sometimes because there's nowhere for you to just go and escape. At least in a bus, you do have your bunk. You kind of go and sit in your little, put some headphones on. I bought a Switch. Maybe one of the best things I did. Sit in my bunk and play my Nintendo Switch for a little bit. Right.
I think that's
Yeah,
a great endorsement there. I think we
Yeah.
need Nintendo to support all bands going
Oh,
forward.
absolutely.
I've got mine over there. I
Yeah.
swear by it.
and other brands are available. But I think it's one of these things, and I think it comes as a shock to bands as well, because I was never lucky enough to do a tour back in the day. So we were lucky if we got a gig a weekend. So, but I can imagine with bands as well, it becomes a bit of an eye opener for them, because they've probably never spent that amount of time so close to each other. So, do you see it as part of the job of the tour manager to almost be there, to step in when as part of that role, is it to watch things like that, the dynamics, and maybe step in and sort of like sort things out that would stop it from happening?
Yeah, maybe an unwritten such, like it's not part of your job title, I would say. Not that anything like that is specifically
Yeah,
described as a job title, but I always say go above and beyond. Go. So if something is happening, why not step in and just kind of be like, "Hey guys, go and take a breather," or we need some kind of lift me up here. Let's go for a drink if that's what it needs. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, there's some people that don't drink, or let's just go for a coffee, or you know what I mean? Just like, yeah.
What would you say is a successful tour then?
I guess successful can be a subjective thing, can't it? So if it's successful in a tour manager's way, would be everyone was happy and it was good vibes and my accountancy finances added up. But I guess obviously successful for the band would be if like the band, I guess, made money, because that is one of the main ways a band makes money these days is tour, isn't it? Like I guess
oh
streaming
yeah,
they can, but not as much as they used to be with like record sales and all that kind of stuff. Or if it's a support tour, if it's whatever the tour, they just gain new fans and they're gaining attraction of their band. Like there's obviously multiple reasons to go on tour. But for a tour manager side of you, I'm a successful tour. And I do, and you said, why did I go into it? And I feel like it's an accomplishment when I finish a tour and it was successful from my point of view. It feels like job satisfaction, I guess, right? It feels good. Like I did
Yeah,
that.
that's cool.
so if someone's watching this and they're thinking, or they've been having ideas, or they're suddenly thinking about it now, that they would like to become a tour manager or even part of the crew, if they want to get into that. But let's focus specifically on the tour manager's role, and then maybe, if you don't mind, talk about what a good crew member is like, personality wise, what kind of things they need to know. But if somebody's watching this, what can they expect from the job, satisfaction wise, and also the downside, and what kind of skill sets do you think are key to being successful as a tour manager?
Yeah. Skill sets, I guess, it's a hard one to teach, but common sense. If so many things can happen on the road, right? Like we had a flight cancelled, we had a blown tire on a bus, we've had and we had to miss a show, we've had in the Alps as a bus broke down and we had to cancel the show. There's so many things that can happen that you kind of have to just deal with there and then. There's nothing that you could prepare yourself for. So I guess a good tip I always wanted to stay calm, because like if you start stressing, everyone around you is going to start stressing, then it just becomes a nightmare to kind of deal with. And I've always tried to stay calm, use my common sense, and see where it goes. I guess, like, take one little step at a time to get to where we need to.
What are the kind of nuts and bolts things that they need to be able to understand? So, like you talked about the accountancy side of it. So, even at its most basic level, what kind of skill sets? Like things like, do you need to know how to work spreadsheets? Do you need to know, what's the actual kind of little technical things that people will need to understand?
Yeah, spreadsheets. I use Excel or Numbers, I guess, is an Apple version every day. So I would make a cash flow sheet or a road report, put in my income, put in my expenses, and make sure that it all adds up. Because at the end of the day, the band could ask you, or the band manager, or whatever level it is, why have we got this much money? Where we made X amount last night, and Y amount in merch. Why do we not have X plus Y? Where's all this money gone? So always account for it. Always know what fuel you spent and all that. And then I always keep receipts too. I always take a picture of them, put them in Dropbox, so it kind of matches everything. So that's kind of like the main job on tour, I guess, is to keep a track of that. And a lot of a tour manager's role is actually before the tour, to sit down and advance the whole thing. Like, the more you do before the tour, like, the easier the tour will be, I always think. Like, you plan it all, you make a tour book, it's like a schedule that everyone's going to hopefully stick to. You get in contact with every promoter, every venue, talk to them about what you're bringing, what you need from them, and then hopefully all that will make a smooth tour. And then your only responsibilities on the tour is, keep track of money and just make sure it all sticks to that schedule that you made.
You said something really interesting there, which caught my attention. Obviously, you said that you use Numbers, which is the Excel for the Mac. What other tools do you use?
Sometimes on Master Tour. Have you ever come across Master Tour? So it's like an app. Yeah, it's like you have to pay for it, unfortunately. It's like 30 a month, maybe. So basically, it's an app that you enter all the information for the tour and down to the venue address, the schedule, and you can change bus calls, you can put in guest lists, you can do everything, and then you can share it with every member on the tour, and they have this app on their phone and they can just use it to see a schedule for things, put in guest lists, which is really nice to just kind of do it all on your phone. What's really good for that is if you're multiple vehicles. So if it's like a big tour with multiple buses and trucks, like it's kind of helpful then with lots of people spread out. But if you're in a smaller tour, whether it's worth the £30 a month, I guess is. But
I don't know. It seems, as I say, it depends. Maybe they need a trial version for, like, up and coming bands.
Yeah,
it may be something that, like, we should look at. But I think it's one of them where anything that can assist the bands in organisation. And I think, like, I'm a stickler. The wife drove it into me that everything needs a spreadsheet. If it's not written down, it's not happening.
It's not.
So it sounds daft. It sounds petty, but when you look back at it, you actually go, she's got a valid point. Like, so, and I know that's most probably the same for you guys. Like, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
my spreadsheets.
Yeah, I mean, it's like with me, in my military days as an army officer, we were told that, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. And I used to turn up in exercises and I'd be in control of the whole exercise and maybe certainly the safety side of it. And occasionally we'd get, let's say we had like army cadets in, and they'll ask the questions that squaddies won't. So they'll say things like, "Well, what do you actually do, sir? Because we haven't seen you do much other than walk about." And they used to say that's because 99% of the work is done before we get here.
Yeah.
I think it's that, and you're right. It is all about the spreadsheets, and it's all about creating forms, documents, whatever that's specific to you. I think, don't just take something that's there. You don't have to. You can make it work for you and your mindset, and then set it out to set yourself. And I think again, it's all about preparation. So, Danny? Is there a change? You mentioned it earlier about sometimes if you're having to deal directly with the band, if there's an issue. But if there's a band manager, is there a different dynamic when you're tour manager for a band with management? Is that a different dynamic? And if so, how does that work?
Yeah, I guess they're just your person to report to, I guess. They're there but they want to see your finances every day. They want to know how their band is doing too, right? They want to know how the show was last night and are they progressing in their career and stuff too. Obviously, a band manager on that side, that's how they get their money too. They normally would take a percentage of what a band is making, so their interest is there for that reason. But it's just someone to report to as well, how the band are doing. Obviously, mental health is such a big thing on tour these days, and especially now. So I actually had a manager that always would check in and it's like, how's the band doing? Everyone's happy mentally, which is nice. And then obviously when they come out, not that they're checking up on you, but they always come to the big show too, right? So the London show or the New York show or the LA show, like the big one of tour. I always feel like, oh, boss is here, like, to relate it to a normal kind of job.
Does he get free tickets?
I hope so.
Sorry about that. I had to ask that one. You have got expertise in live sound and audio engineering. So if someone's watching this and they think, I want a career in live sound and audio engineering, what advice would you give them?
Yeah,
I've got a few other questions to throw at you because I think this is something I'm really interested in.
I mean, my first thing, actually, I think you already mentioned it on earlier. Put yourself out there. Like, don't be afraid to email people and talk to people and reach out to people. I remember when I started, I was actually always not nervous, is maybe the wrong word, but I didn't want to email people. I didn't want to seem like I was bothering them. But you're not. If they don't want to reply, they just won't reply. Like I sent out 100 emails and be cool if you get a couple back. But if you want to go into live sound and message the people that you want to work with. If it's a band and you want to go on tour, just give them a message. You never know. If it's a venue, go and shadow someone in that venue and learn from them that way. Or go and work in a venue if you've already got that skill set and you don't need to shadow, if you know what I mean. And then network with everyone that comes in and kind of, throw yourself in the deep end too. I remember my first show on tour, I was petrified. It was like 15,000 people and I've only ever mixed to like 200 max before. And I was like, what am I doing here? But I learned so much from that, like half an hour changeover than I probably, could have at any other like venue.
So you've just started me off on the first question there, which has left you wide open, unfortunately, Danny. So what's the difference between mixing for 200 people to 15,000 people?
I would say mixing for 15,000 people is easier, only because I have more control of my mix and I'm not fighting the room. If you're in a 200 cat room, I'm all I picture in my head is a Green Door store in Brighton, which is a venue that I worked at for many years and probably learned a lot from it, is a brick room. It's just a brick square room. And if you hit a cymbal in there, it's the loudest thing you've ever heard. Mm-hmm. So, but change that to an arena with a 15,000 cat room as such, and you hit a cymbal and you can't hear it. So great, I can control that. I can turn that up. I can turn that down. Obviously you have different things to fight with, like plastic seats. Everything vibrates and bounces off plastic seats, and I get echoes from everywhere. And it's just like, oh. And then the room changes, obviously, when it's full of people, and I have to start mixing again. But the pressure, for sure, like going from mixing 200 people to like, I'm still scared now. I still get shakes in my hands when it's like a big show, but I always go like it means I care, I guess. Like if I was just blasé about it and just went to mix, if it was anything, I was like, yeah, I'm over it. But I'm not. I'm still scared. I'm still nervous. I'm still ready.
Have you
But
ever
that's
been
the
in the
adrenaline.
position, Danny, where you've been sat there and no matter what your skill sets are, no matter your knowledge, no matter what you do, it still sounds like it's been mixed by a Kenwood chef?
Oh yeah, yeah. Sometimes you just can't win. Like some rooms, some like I always blame the room, but whether it's that or I'm just having a bad day, I don't know. But there's definitely some mixes I've walked away with and goes, that was horrible. But I guess the
Oh,
different like studio stuff, at least at least you have that to go back to and change it, right? In a live situation, it's gone and you'll never get it back again. Like, oh, that snare sounded horrible. Can't do anything about that now.
so
Have
that
you ever
leads
walked
me.
off, has a band ever walked off stage and either them or their managers come gunning for you, because they're blaming you for what they could hear? You ever had that?
No, I don't think I have. Touch
Well,
wood.
I need to book you for something. I need to book you for King Voodoo, then Ian's band, because he'll definitely do that.
So what do you see is the difference between recording in the studio and obviously a live venue? Now I know that you've said that you can go back and you can alter and stuff like that, but what if say that it's like your first setup in a studio compared to a first setup in a live venue?
Yeah, like I just said in the studio, yeah, if you hit a snare and you don't like it, you can go back over it 1,000 times. If you hit a snare in a live situation, it's gone forever. Other things, I guess, like technical, when I changed from doing my studio to live, the big thing I realized is how much more EQ I apply live.
All right, okay.
Like studio, like you don't really want to cut or boost that much, do you? If it doesn't sound right, you can always go back and record it again, like move the mic or
Yeah.
use a different mic or like experiment with that. Or you kind of don't want to take like much out or add much. In live, I am taking 6 dB out of things or adding 6 dB on like if I want to click on a kick drum, I'm not scared to add all of that in. And same with compression. Like I guess in studio I would compress maybe more than I would live.
No, that makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
When you're actually live, is there do you use the venue's microphones or do you advise the bands to bring their own microphone?
So when I started, I was just using venues, but then as
Right.
I carried on in my career and obviously had some money, I bought my own just for consistency. Like a band that I mixed, like Beartooth, I was doing this time last year. We traveled our own console, our own cables, our own mic, everything. So every day was
Wow, okay.
literally identical. And then you go even bigger, and obviously you're traveling your own PA.
Yeah.
So yeah, so literally everything's the same.
So
But
that must be a lot easier for, well, not for transportation purposes, but for actual controlling and keeping the quality the same if or similar. Must be a lot easier when you do that, because you must have turned up at some venues and they've got, there's the PA, there's the mixing desk, there's the microphones, and you're looking at the microphones, you go, when did you get these? When the Beatles were lads? Yeah, they must have been.
Yeah,
Argos.
absolutely.
Yeah, the 20 quid Argos mic. I've seen that in a
Exactly.
few
Yeah, the
venues.
venue's got it just because it looks like a microphone. Like, yeah, definitely. Like having a console and having that makes it so much easier. It can build on my file as such too. It's obviously a digital console that I've been taking out, and every day I can change. As I guess that's what going back to like the studio stuff. Like if I didn't like my snare, if I'm traveling a console, I can go and change it because I know that the next day I'm on the same console. Um, when I was touring without a console, obviously you come across the same consoles a lot, so I'd always have a USB stick and load the file, and that means I'm already a little step forward in that too. I did enjoy coming up to an analog console every now and then, though. Pushes me a little bit more, and they're like, oh, I actually have to start from scratch today. Then, like,
So how much? What's your preference between the two? Just is it digital because that's what you're used to?
yeah, I mean, Digital, I guess that you can now run all those plugins like Waves and stuff. I love running Waves live. Allen and Heath, which is a console I took out last time, actually had different like DBX processors, like Deep they call it, built into the console. So it was nice. My console, I could carry it in one hand. So remember we did like Download Festival. We were third from the top on the second stage, and they were like, I think that you can't bring your console because you're not in the right place. And I was like, I can literally carry it myself and set it up on my Pelly. And they were like, okay then. So I guess in that way it's good because an analog console is huge. And then your snake you have to run from front of house to stage is going to be every XLR, and you're like it's going to be fit. And then digital, it's just a Cat5 cable that I could run. Like it's so that side of things is easier.
You've just pushed me on to another question now. So obviously we do the 200 venue, 200 cab venue with low ceilings. Then you do the stadium ones, which has got plastic seats reverbing. Then you've got Download, the outdoor festival, which has got wind, which has got different variants and stuff like that. Which one would you prefer to be doing?
Outdoors, I think.
Really?
I can't fight the wind, yeah. It's weird, isn't it? Because I did Warped Tour once too, which I don't know if it's like a festival in America that travels. Yeah. And different states' humidity would change how it sounded. So, like, if a state like Florida is the most humid place on earth, sounded great though. The humidity in the air made it sound like really thick and like so. It's funny to like that's your battle. Every place has its own battle, right? As you said, like a low ceiling 200 cap or a reverberant arena with like seats or wind. Like I've heard stories of people taking out one side of a PA because the wind is pushing it so much across. He just takes the left because the right is blowing all the way over, and you get in like phase issues because of the wind.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
How would you compensate? Obviously, you said about like removing one side. What's your biggest challenge you faced outside?
DB limits, to be honest. So there's a lot, especially in like Switzerland and like some festivals too, because if you're facing another stage, you have to kind of mix to a DB limit. I always been thrown in. I'm mixing loud rock bands, and they want to be loud, and I want that punch. I want that like energy. And you get Switzerland is like 98 dB, and like you're outside mixing at 98 dB. Like I don't want to be able to talk to the person, whisper to the person next to me. Do you know what I mean? Like I want to. So I always actually struggle with that sometimes outside. Like I want it loud, and they keep telling me to turn down.
So the moral to that story is never tour in Switzerland.
Yeah,
that's the answer.
Yeah,
they don't get it. They don't understand it. If you're an acoustic guy, it's a perfect place. But if you know it, they don't go there. So what kind of skill sets and aptitudes do you think a person should either have or learn and be focused on to do engineering, to be involved in the production of sound? Are there key attributes that you think of?
Yeah, I mean, I guess studio patience, because obviously you have to do loads of takes and all that, and then
I've been knackered then.
Live sound, it's just, I guess, knowing what everything does and actually knowing the ins and outs of what a compressor does and a gate does and an EQ and when to use it and when not to use it. Yeah, that's a hard one because it's like a technical thing rather than so your skill sets would be just the ins and outs of audio, I guess, and then the technology side of consoles and all that if something goes wrong.
So let me put it another way. You must have come across some people that have said to you, this is the role that I want, this is a job that I want to do. And no matter how hard they try, you're thinking, this is a car crash. So they must have skill, they must lack some sort of skill sets. So if they're tone deaf, for example, it's like painter, decorator, and colorblind. It's kind of what I'm looking at is if there's something that can stop you from doing it, there must be other things that can really help you. If you've got keen ear, patience. I watched Dr. Dre, and I was sitting there watching this thing with his big desk, and I was like, that would drive me nuts. There's no way I could spend an hour bugging about with that.
just yeah. I mean, yeah. Obviously, your ears would be number one, and then just get on learn. I guess touring is different too, because touring, I've always said too, you can be the best engineer in the world, but you're a nightmare to be around. No one's going to take you on tour. Like if you're just, I don't know, not a nice person.
Control freak.
You know what I mean?
Control freak. Yeah. Control freak. That's got the personality of Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
Have you come across anybody like that?
I guess
no names, obviously, because we don't want sued.
Yeah, this person. No. I've definitely come across people that I wouldn't want to tour with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
and then you get that phone call, Danny would like to come on tour. You're like, oh no, shit.
I'm busy. Sorry.
I can't go. Wait, how long's the tour? 9-month world tour. Oh, I can't do it. I'm pregnant. Damn. I blame the wife. Oh, you can just imagine it. Yeah. I must admit, there's sometimes when I tell you, I remember Ian, his band. I think the first time I ever saw him playing live was in this pub in Rochdale, I think it was. And like they forgot to tell the sound engineer that there was a band on that night. And this old guy walked in, and I mean, honestly, he must have been. He looked to me like he was in his 80s, and he walked in, and I've been in venues where they're buggered about for hours trying to. This old bloke just walked in, says, "Right, let me hear a bit of bass, let me hear a bit of guitar, let me hear the voice back." Boom, and right from the first chord and beat of the first song, it was perfect. And I was like, that is somebody that knows his venue and knows his desk and knows everything, because it was that easy. Remember that, Ian?
Yeah, I remember that. That's it. That. Do you know what? But that's where, like, Danny, you must probably experience this. You go to different venues every other night and stuff like that. So, is there normally someone there who'll give you a little bit of advice what the area is like, or what the stage is like, or is it just basically, there you go, see you later? They open the door and let you find things out yourself.
Yeah, it depends, I guess. I've had people that obviously know their venue inside out and want to help, and then I've also had people that know their venue inside and out but don't want to help. They're kind of put off that they're not mixing. Like, it's their venue.
Really?
How dare this band bring their own engineer? Like, I've definitely, and I've also had people the other side like, how do you work in this venue? Like, I guess goes back to they just don't know their stuff. Like, I've got there and they're like, can I plug this into there? And you're like, what? And I'm like, it's an XLR. It goes into there. How do you not like? It does blow my mind sometimes, especially at big venues. Again, not naming any venues or anything, but I've been to like a 1,500 cat room, say, and the engineer there has no idea what to do. Like, as if it's his first day ever on a mixing console, and it blows my mind.
Yeah, because we would assume. I know that if I was booking a venue like that for any of our bands, you would assume that they would have people that know what they're doing, but obviously not, as the case as you're saying.
Yeah, like sometimes, how did you get this job? But other times they're the best, and I'm like, maybe you should be mixing this band today. Like,
that's cool.
So, obviously we've captured a little bit of information before that you've also a band manager. So can you talk us through that? Let us know what you like, how you got involved in it, and the way you work as a manager, and what you expect from bands from that perspective.
Yeah, so how I got into it, I guess. So I worked for a band called Silverstein. I don't know if you're from Canada, for 5 or 6 years, and their manager was actually their drummer. So I learned a lot from him, being the TM and working closely with him on obviously tours, and then while on tour, seeing him working with other things like their releases or their marketing campaigns and all that. And then he started a company called Tandem with another guy called Rich from Toronto. And then I asked them if they needed any help, like happy to just kind of be an assistant and just learn that kind of side of it. And then I actually ended up managing a band called River Becomes Ocean, which were friends of mine. So I learned a lot from kind of managing that. And then from that, other bands have reached out to me. Stuff gets offered to Tandem because they've kind of grown their company now, and I think there's like maybe up to 10 managers there now. So bands reach out to them, and then if any of those managers like what they sound, they'll pick them up. So yeah, that's how I kind of got into it. And then I guess, what was your question? Like how?
Well, what do you what do you think in the modern day, in this time, what is a manager's role in a band? Because I think a lot of times bands themselves don't understand, maybe even the managers, and I think I've been guilty of this in occasion as well, not understanding really what a role is. And I think if you can help bands who are watching this to understand what you think about a manager's role is and what it isn't, is just as important.
For sure. Yeah, like it is always every time a band reaches out to me, my first question to them is, what are you wanting me to do? Like, so yeah, like I'm not, a band manager isn't there to get you the next best tour or get, like, they're there to like help you make your best decisions and push you as far as you can go and support you along the way. Like, use their contacts, I guess, to maybe get you in a door that you maybe wouldn't without a manager, for sure. Like if you know a record label more personally than they will, maybe that'll help get them signed and that kind of side of things. And same with a booking agent. Like if you know you work well with an agent and that's what they need. But yeah, you're making decisions for the band's best interest and you're helping them organize themselves to do that. And you're taking some things are not away from them is the wrong way to say it, but the organization of their maybe finances and making sure they're on the right way as a business too, like that side of things. Tell me if I'm wrong, because I know that you're a band manager too, and I'd like to hear what you think, because it is a hard question, isn't it? Like it is.
Oh, I love the way you passed that back. This interview, John, now.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of different for me because, and to some extent, because we have the promotion side of the business as well, which I'm involved in. So you get this crossover. But you're right, Danny, and that the first thing I now say, and I say that because, you know, when I first started a couple of years ago, I think I had the wrong idea of what was needed to do. So the first thing I say now, if I'm talking to a band, and we've signed a few in the last couple of months, what is it you want? What is it? Where is your weakness? Where do you perceive your weakness to be? What is it you don't think you're doing very well? And what makes you think that I could be the person to help you with that? And if we do that and we sit down, then it's a case of, if I'm not the right fit, I'll tell them. But I think the first thing with me is if I just don't like the music, then that's I just won't work with it because I can't be passionate about it. And if I'm not passionate about it, I won't do it. So I think that's one advice I'd give to anybody who wants to be in management or a band going looking at management. If they're not in your genre and they're quite clearly don't understand, like a guy came to me that was a rapper, and I started this conversation because I really liked what he did, but I was like, so have you got a band? Well, no, I just do this. And so do you create the beat? I really didn't have a clue. And I was like, listen, mate, you'd be better going to find somebody that really understands this genre. You know, best way. Oh yeah, but I want you to be my manager. No, I don't have the time or the energy to learn all this. You know, and that's the other thing. I think you have to have that. You have to understand that when you're talking to a band, what they're like and understand their dynamics as well. And they'll lie to you anyway, but I think one of the things is you're almost part social worker, part father or grandfather, depending on the age of the band. And I think there's an element of that too. But I think it's also about, and the mistake I made for the first couple of years was I made it all about the bands and not about the brand, our brand. And once I made that decision a year ago in lockdown, because I think lockdowns helped a lot of us. Well, everybody's been moaning there's no gigs and you can't make money and all that, which is true. But what it has done is it made me refocus on what I wanted to achieve and how to achieve it. And I really drilled into it. So I'm doing things now that I wouldn't have done then, which is this in-depth conversation. Not, I just like the music, they're really cool guys and I'm going to work with them. No, it needs to be beyond that. So I think myself that is the role. And it varies from band to band that I work with. Some of them I'm heavily involved in every decision they make. Others, it's slightly different. And that's why I work with quite a few different bands. But I enjoy that, you know. If I was having to be in depth with absolutely everything, then I'd probably only have 2 or 3 bands.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything you said. Yeah, that makes sense. One thing that got me interested is you said like a manager is like a father or whatever, or like change that back to tour management. I always say a tour management is like a babysitter. So to
Yeah,
to put
that's
your
true. That's right.
relationship with a tour manager and a manager, the father is still in charge of the babysitter.
I love it.
Yeah, and that's actually true. I mean, it is mind blowing, and it's like working with, and then the other thing I think as well is that I've started doing now, and I'd be interested in your opinion on this, Danny, is when I'm talking to bands now, I might come across as being an idiot for not having done it before, but my thing is my first thing I say to them now is who do you believe your target audience is? You know, which other bands, fans do you think you would appeal to? And that just helps me to understand their mindset. Because if they're sitting there doing the old, well, we're not just a straightforward heavy metal band. We've got elements of hip hop and punk and all that. No, mate, you sound like Iron Maiden. You're talking shit. Then you're saying to yourself, these guys are going to, or these people are going to be quite hard to push down a certain route. But I think it's one of them things as well as understanding what they believe they are, and then if that correlates with what you believe, then you've got a way forward. But if you end up right at the start, you feel like you're going to be butting heads with the members of the band on their identity, I think that's a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Isn't it? You're all in it together for the same end goal, really. And if you don't have that same end goal, then it's not going to work.
Yeah, that's cool. So if anybody's watching this, and again, I seem to be asking this question about everything that you do, but it is key, and I would find it hard to answer this if I'm being perfectly honest with you. But if somebody wants to be a band manager, it's almost one of these things where the simple fact they want to be a band manager, you should automatically worry about that. but in reality, there's some of us mad enough out there. I mean, I get into it because I just wanted to help bands get beyond the bullshit and try and help them. And that was it. I could make more money doing other jobs, trust me, a lot more. But the passion's in it. But if somebody's watching this and they're thinking, I want to be a band manager, what would you, Danny, say is the key attributes for that? And what do they need to know about, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you know about how the music industry works, I guess, and the different ins and outs and all the different team players. So I always say, like, a manager is only one of the team, right? You need someone to help you with a record label, for instance, so someone with merch, someone with booking shows. So I guess to know who to reach out to, which will be networking, right? So have a large people that you trust and you believe in to help you with your goal and like build that team around you. And I guess the main one with band management would be organization, right? So having everything either laid out for the band to do, because the band like notoriously aren't always that well organized. Great if they are, that makes your job a lot easier. But I've had both, as you said, like some bands that I'm more hands-on with, that like, this is what I want you need you to do by the end of the week. Or I've had other bands saying, I've done this week. I'm like, awesome, like great. Well, yeah. So organization, keeping on top of things, I guess, like just, which I guess is the same as organization in a way, isn't it? Like setting a band or yourself deadlines, doing that, like, so yeah, organization and networking would be my two key attributes for that, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think one of the other things that I found was it was as important to find out who not to work with.
Oh, yeah.
Who to work with. And I found a lot of charlatans, piss takers, bandits, outlaws in this industry, much more than any other industry I've ever been in. And people that's living off the dreams of young musicians, or musicians of any kind, actually, any age. But and it's almost as important to make sure that as a manager, you find out the ones not to work with. That's what I think. Or if you can find a way around them. I mean, if you could change one thing about the music industry that we're involved in, Danny, right now, that you think would help it, what would it be?
Oh, that's a hard question.
Yeah, that's why I threw it at you, mate. That's why I never wrote it down for you. Yeah, you've asked for it by being too clever.
I mean, I guess I should always say the first thing that comes to my mind is streaming, isn't it? That a lot of artists complain about the price that they get paid for their streams, like especially like Spotify, isn't it? Like you have to stream so much to even get a penny. Like, and then Spotify obviously makes so much money from their subscriptions and everything. So I guess one thing that's not really about the music industry, but it's the first thing that came to my head. Like, hopefully bands get paid from streaming a little more, and then their income isn't just from touring or merch, that kind of side of things.
Yeah, it must be the only industry I can think of where the actual exciting bit about the industry is the only bit that doesn't make you money.
Yeah. Yeah.
The creative process doesn't make you money. In fact, you could almost make more money by getting a good artist, as in like graphic artist, to create your merchandise than it is important to make your music. And it's absolutely mental. And I think the one thing that these downloads and all that's done is they've made money. Anything that you value at very little has no value at all. So if you're paying 0.06p, 006p to download a track, what value have you got in that, really?
Yeah,
it's devalued it that much, even to the end user, that it's now become background music.
Someone told me something interesting. So obviously, I feel like I'm getting some feedback from someone. Think of a band as a business, which essentially it is, and you're selling something, right? So if you're a shop, you're selling something, and you have content to help you sell that. So you have like a picture of, if you're a clothing company, of a wearing that item of clothing, or an advert in something. These days, a band, your content is your music. It might not be necessarily making you money, but it's there to advertise the things that you are selling, which is your merch and your shows. Like, it's kind of a weird way, because you would think, like, someone from outsider, you think, oh, well, they're selling their music. And it's like, yeah or no, like, they are, but their music is advertising for everything else, because they don't really get paid from their music. But obviously, if it wasn't for their music, they wouldn't go on tour. So it's kind of a weird, but I thought it was very interesting to hear that kind of that look on it.
I think the thing is as well, though, that it's never really changed. For anybody that's watching this and not old enough to remember pre-download days and the Spotify's, this was always the case. Bands never really made money out of selling albums, back in the 70s and all that, because the fact was the record companies had made all the money. Yeah. The band still had to tour and sell merchandise to make money. It was as simple as that. It's never changed. It's just who's getting the money has changed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think because of social media and stuff now, it becomes more apparent, doesn't it? People talk about it more, so therefore it feels like it's more relevant now than it was back then, because it's easier to talk about.
Oh, in sort of 2009, 2010, Lemmy said that he'd made more money out of 4 songs that he wrote for Ozzy, that Ozzy put in an album, than he had ever done anything he'd ever released in Motorhead. And that was purely down to the record companies and the managers that Motorhead had. And that's something. So even then, and way before then, it's not something new. But yeah, you're right, mate. You're right.
So there you have it. There's Danny's 10 questions, but we always, on the Scouser and the Scot, we always throw in another curveball at the end. So Danny, one last one. If anyone wanted to reach out to yourself, discuss band management, live audio engineering, Sonic Workshop, how did they get in touch with you, bud? Can you give us your links?
Yeah, so the website is sonicworkshops.co.uk. You can go on there and look at all mentors we have and myself, or you can email me, which is just contact@sonicworkshops.co.uk. And I will respond to any questions you have.
That's easy.
Yeah, all I can do is say thank you very much, Danny. It's been really good insight. We'd love to have you back on at a later date if you'd be up for it. Another 10 questions. We'd have you at any time, mate.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, guys. I enjoyed it. It's good.
Hey, no worries. John, over to you, mate.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's another. Well, we really enjoyed it, so we hope you do as well. And I'd like to thank Danny. So until next time, you know what to do. Hit that cowbell. Right.